Here I go again. Have I missed something? No, I don't think so. I can still hear some playing going on. So
Ooh, it's still going in the second half.
we have to be... Sorry? First.
It's first half.
I should sneak in quietly.
In 2023, Masa gave 30 performances between January and August, consisting of solo recitals, concertos, and cruise concerts on board the piano boat. He'd begun the year with his regular New Year's slot at a local church. The recording of this concert is, in fact, available in full on YouTube. He had become a firm favourite with the audiences there, some of whom knew him as a teacher in the locality as well. He followed this in February with a full evening programme of 2 halves at the wonderful Dysart in Richmond, which has a magical and intimate feel to its concerts, not dissimilar to that which we have always aspired to achieve on the boat. Masa had performed there for years from the very beginning of the series, and always loved returning. He had also become friends with the owner and his family, a relationship I have been very pleased to continue and am grateful for. Although he had stepped back from performing after his diagnosis, he enjoyed the freedom of only doing as much as he wanted to. He was delighted to perform Rachmaninoff's second piano concerto, and I discovered that, in spite of having performed the third most often in his lifetime, the second was in fact his favourite. That, of course, was an opportunity he didn't want to turn down. The first in February led to him being invited back to perform Tchaikovsky's first piano concerto in November with the Watford Symphony Orchestra. During the summer, I asked him if he was sure he could manage it, and wouldn't it be better to allow himself the time to rest? It's a very physical thing to perform a concerto, and a romantic Russian one at that. He was quiet for a moment, busy on his phone. After a while, Tchaikovsky's first suddenly barged its way out of his mobile speakers. His eyes lit up, and he grinned in his inconspicuous way, smiling more with his whole face than his mouth. "Just listen to that. I have to do it," he said. "Okay," I smiled back at him. There was no question. After the undisputed success of his February Rachmaninoff second performance, he told me with a glint in his eye that as he was playing those big chords, demonstrating with gusto as he relayed the story, he was thinking triumphantly, "I don't feel like a cancer patient." Since Christmas 2022, We had taken to running intensive cruising schedules during school holidays, and nothing during term time when I was teaching. We had got as far as planning up to the summer, so began cruising in the last week of July and would run for around 5 weeks. Masa had been in and out of hospital during July and August particularly, and there were a couple of hairy moments when he was close to discharging himself, as he was worried about not making it back in time to run a cruise. On one occasion, he arrived back just an hour before we were due to leave. In the midst of our cruising schedule, he gave an outstanding recital at the Hitchin Festival at the end of July. There had always been something a bit special about his performances there, and he had built up quite a following over a few years. This final concert, however, was concluded with his signature Rhapsody in Blue, and he was met with the audience on their feet. More than one person has since remarked that they thought it was the best performance of his that they had heard. Sometimes, at the end of a concert, he would say to the audience, "I can tell you now since I think it went okay, but I can't actually feel my fingers." He would go on to explain that this was due to the chemotherapy, or as he put it, a kind of medicine I have to take, and that he had had to reevaluate his technique to rely more on his ears and less on the physical sensation of the keys to find the right notes and the sound he wanted. He described it as like playing with gloves on, and he had very little sensation in the top halves of his fingers beyond a constant painful tingling. Alongside his public concerts and our cruise events, Masa stoically continued with the Piano Boat's virtual concert series, which had become something he was very proud of and an immensely important monthly motivator in difficult times. It grew out of a weekly live stream we begun on Facebook in 2020, before we had the boat, and developed into a 45 to 60 minute recital each month, streamed live from our concert saloon.
Well, good afternoon. Well, just about from the piano boat at the concert saloon on board MV Rachmaninoff. Well, as you may know, we have actually just finished a actual concert cruise.
Between December 2020 and July 2023, he gave 33 concerts of varied programs to audiences joining us from across the world. This was accompanied by a monthly Q&A and discussion for subscribers to the series, complete with Japanese translation.
What I'm interested to know is how does given that there's a concerto coming up in a few weeks' time, how does the preparation differ between a solo performance and a concerto performance?
まあ、リアナも、若い時から、まあ、まだ若いですけど、from when you were young and you're still young. 若い時からコンチェルトをいくつか弾く機会があって、まあ、私なんかそんなになかったですからね、そういうより羨ましいと思っちゃう面もありますけど、まあ、リアナはあんまりそういうところを追求してないですけれども、実際に you're quite fortunate and jealous and I never had an opportunity. But そんなこともありましたけど、まあ、そういう、まあ、いくつかは弾いたものの、そんなにそういうキャリアには興味ないと。で、そういうところから来ると、コンチェルトという準備とソロのコンサートの準備とどういうところが違うかと。どういうところが違うかというと、I mean the difference between, what was it? I forgot the question.
Solo and concerto.
The difference. I think there is more pressure with concertos. I think that's inevitable. どうしてもやっぱりコンチェルトの方が一般的にはプレッシャー大きいですね。Partly because you are playing with possibly 60 to 80 people with you. So there is that sense of, if it's a solo situation, ultimately you don't want to, but I think there is slightly less consequence if you have to stop in the middle and say, oh, I forgot to pick up a pack of, a dozen eggs at Sainsbury's. It's slightly less problematic than if you're in the middle of a concerto performance, because you are playing with a lot of people.
And Masa also provided an in-depth pre-concert talk for each program.
Variation 1 and 2 quite lyrical. And now we have syncopation. So this is quite 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. And the last one, impatient, it doesn't even 1, 2, you go 1 and 2. Which brings on the next build-ups. So we're going to hang on.
It would be a devastating omission to talk about Masa's performances in 2023 and not mention his annual appearance as Darth Vader for May the 4th, also known as Star Wars Day. Being so close to the King's coronation last year, he was keen to incorporate a none too subtle nod to the occasion. The 27th of August marked our final cruise of the summer and Masa's last performance. No doubt we've all experienced that phenomenon where your body somehow manages to hold everything together because there are things that need to be done. And then afterwards you come down with a cold or end up in bed for a week when the pressure is off. We celebrated the end of our run of bookings, and he passed away a mere 3.5 weeks later. I will be forever in awe of Masa's willpower and unfathomable strength of mind and body as he managed to skipper the boat and give memorable performances throughout the summer. I am so proud of him. His Tchaikovsky in November 2023 was taken by Juanjo Blázquez Garre, a wonderfully talented pianist who handled the circumstances very graciously and has made his own video about that particular concert. Please do support him if you can. I recently discovered that the recital series at this year's Hitchin Festival was dedicated to Masa, though I unfortunately wasn't able to attend any of the concerts this year. In July 2024, we organised a memorial concert for Masa with performers who had known and worked closely with him. It was a truly heartfelt occasion and was sold out to the absolute maximum capacity of the hall. I say this often because I believe it's true, that Masa would not have believed the extent to which his existence touched the lives of so very many others. Even as his health declined, his musical communication only seemed to strengthen, and there was an electrifying purity to it which you couldn't ignore when he played. It may be true that musicians are fortunate. After all, why pursue music if a part of you didn't truly love it? To do something you are passionate about all day long is a wonderful thing. But if you asked Masa what he enjoyed in life, he wouldn't reply with playing the piano. It was so deep within him that it simply existed. Ask him at any moment what piece was playing in his head, and he would have an immediate response, usually in the form of an enthusiastic vocal rendition. Music ran through his whole body and mind, so that it wasn't a question of choice or preference. It was who he was.